Brooke from Chicago, Illinois. She was representing ENT, but is now representing a different business unit, and I will let her share that story. Over to you, Jen.
I was about 5 years old as I crawled into bed for story time. My mom was reading me the book, I Love You Forever, our favorite at the time. As she closed the book, she read the final words, I love you forever, I like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby you'll be. Gave me a kiss and started to walk out of the room. I stopped her and I said, Mom, before you go, can you check under my bed for ghosts? I'm scared. She came back in and she responded, Sweetie, I'll look under your bed for ghosts, but I promise you you're safe. Ghosts aren't real. Sweet dreams. Was I still nervous going to bed that night? Sure. But knowing that my mom, the woman that I trusted more than anything, assured me I'd be okay, I slept the night away. As kids, we have bodyguards, parents whose jobs are to protect us from any and all danger. But what about as we get older? As our security blankets are yanked out from underneath us, as we're challenged to figure out the world on our own. When our bodyguards are gone, but the ghosts are still there. How do we tell the difference between what's under our beds and what's in our heads? At this point in my life, I'm no longer concerned with what's under my bed. I mean, sure, every once in a while, I will hear a sound that will spook me. But more often, I'm dealing with the what's in my head dilemma. Can anyone else relate? How much of what we tell ourselves is real versus not? Well, this all centers around the idea of self-talk. The definition of self-talk says self-talk is the way that you talk to yourself or your inner voice. You might not be aware that you're doing it, but you almost certainly are. This inner voice combines conscious thoughts with inbuilt beliefs and biases to create an internal monologue throughout the day. According to research, 75% of our daily thoughts are negative, 95% of these repetitive. Of these negative thoughts and ghosts, some are easier to see and validate than others. How do we go about choosing the positive thoughts over the negative? How do we calibrate our perspectives? Let me give you an example. How many of you have been on a plane and experienced turbulence? And how many of you have been on a plane with that turbulence and thought to yourselves, I wish I told my loved ones I love them one more time because this is it? I was on a plane earlier this year and experienced severe turbulence, likely the worst turbulence I've personally ever experienced. The type of turbulence where you have to turn your music down into silent because for whatever reason, silence helps in stressful scenarios. And you start to look around to see if anyone else seems nervous. Most importantly, you look to find the flight attendants to see if they seem worried. So here I was on the plane looking around. The flight attendants seemed fine. The guy next to me seemed fairly distraught, although frankly, he seemed distraught from the moment that we got on the plane. My ginger ale was still in its cup, although it was sloshing around a bit. Otherwise, silence. There was no one on the intercom assuring us that this was just a short bout and we would be through it quickly. I knew in this moment it would be on me to assure myself. So I sat there, and in my head, I started to tell myself, you're okay, you're good. No plane has ever dropped due to turbulence, you're good. And before you knew it, we were riding smoothly again. That's one way how I have been able to combat the ghosts in my head, but what about something that impacts your everyday life, like your career? In 1982, Stryker consisted of 500 employees, 2 business units, medical and surgical, and sales were $45 million. This was the year that my childhood role model began his 32-year career journey here at Stryker. He was constantly striving to support his family and more. Stryker tidbits were included over nearly every dinner conversation, something I'm sure most of us can relate to. He was so evidently passionate and inspired to work at Stryker, and because of this, I knew that one day I wanted to work at Stryker too, just like my dad. 37 years later, that dream became a reality for me, and I started my own career journey here. With the great honor to work here comes what feels like a massive responsibility to stay here and be equally as successful. I just want to make him proud, and sometimes the desire to make the ones that we love proud can feel paralyzing. In a day and age where people are changing jobs what feels like every few years, I personally have a weight on my chest of I can't leave Stryker because my dad would be so sad and so disappointed. Now, has my dad ever said this? No, he hasn't. So why is this ghost in my head? Why have I applied this pressure to myself that doesn't exist when in actuality, all my dad wants is to support me no matter where I am as long as I'm happy? Last year was a challenging year for me professionally. How many of you here have gone through the internal interview process here within Stryker? Those of you who have gone through the internal interview process or known anyone that has gone through the internal interview process know the amount of work it takes for internal roles. The expectations are so high because we have the luxury of access to so many incredible resources. Last year, I felt ready to take on the next step in my career. I diligently prepared for the interview process, and 6 or 7 interviews later, I was told that given the state of the business and the business needs, I was not getting the job. Back to my territory I went, back to supporting my customers, dealing with this devastating no, but I wouldn't let it break me. Another similar role opened up, and I was in the trenches of interviewing once again. This time would be different. This time I would share why I didn't get the last role, and this would encourage a more positive road for me. 7 or 8 interviews went by, and again, given the state of the business and the business needs, I was not getting the job. I was essentially told it's not you, it's me, twice in a matter of 6 months. And as I'm sure most of you here know, hearing it's not you, it's me does not really help in processing the emotion of not getting a role or a significant other back in middle school. So back to my territory I went, back to focusing on my customers, but the ghosts in my head were starting to become constant and starting to feel unbearable. I wrestled in my head of, am I good enough to work here? Do I belong here? Do I need to leave Stryker? I battled with my self-worth here, and for a moment considered leaving Stryker due to my recent track record of no's. But I had this weight on my chest of, I can't leave Stryker because my dad would be so sad and so disappointed. He'd have no one to talk Stryker stock with or talk smack about Medtronic with. The ghost in my head saying that my dad would be resentful to me if I ever chose to leave Stryker weighed on me day in and day out. Now you can see I'm still here. I did not choose an outside opportunity. Instead, I decided I love Stryker. Me. I love Stryker. And I want to stay here for me. Not because my dad doesn't want me to leave. Because first things first, that ghost in my head wasn't real. But ultimately, I focused on what I wanted, what my goals were. And this focus brought clarity for me. And today, I'm in an internal role that I worked hard for and flourishing in. And I'm so incredibly grateful to be a part of the customer solutions team. Now let's take a moment to reflect on the ghosts in your heads. Do you have a fear or a pressure that you've applied to yourself that seems to persist even though you know it isn't real? Maybe you have a fear that your family will resent you for taking that work trip. Maybe you have a fear that someday you'll have trouble getting pregnant. Maybe you have a fear that you won't get that leadership role that you want to go for. Maybe you have a fear that your family will resent you if you don't accomplish that one thing. These are all valid fears, and ghosts, I will never deny that. But let's remember 75% of our daily thoughts are negative, 95% of these repetitive. So what if we flip the script on our ghost? What if we focus on manifesting the good and table the ghosts every once in a while? Let's change the self-talk to my family will appreciate me for doing whatever it takes to provide for us. I will have a beautiful family someday because no matter what, our home will be filled with love. I will get that leadership opportunity because I've worked hard and I've earned it. My family will be proud of me no matter the circumstance. Now, I'm not saying you can't ever call your mom to confirm the ghost is just under your bed or in your head, but to take control of our destinies, we have to be aware of and work to improve our self-talk. Let's focus on bringing light to the good. Let's talk about how lucky I was to have such loving bodyguards growing up. Let's talk about the hundreds of flights that I've been on that have been smooth sailing, not the few that have been bumpy. Let's talk about how both of the roles I didn't get last year led me into the roles that I'm in today and I'm loving every second of. Sometimes we truly need to turn on the nightlight on in our lives and shine light on the incredible things around us while busting ghosts along the way. Just like Ghostbusters, I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Jen, I love that analogy of the ghosts in our head versus the ghosts under our bed. Such a strong message. And we are all very thankful that you decided to stay here at Stryker. Next up, also from Chicago, but representing our CMF division, is Nikki Dushik. Take it away, Nikki.
Think back to a time when you were on a first date. Across the table sits someone you find attractive and intriguing. Your heart's racing, your palms are sweating, and you're trying to calm the butterflies in your stomach. In true sales fashion, you have a few topics of conversation you pre-called plan for to make sure there's no awkward silences. You're hyper aware of every word you say, every gesture you make, and the length of eye contact being made. You want to impress them and show your best self. Yet, there's a constant nagging fear you might say the wrong thing or say too much too soon. Now imagine you take a deep breath